Every time it looked like everything was about to fall apart, something deeper inside came alive instead. Challenges have been circling like smoke with no source. Shapeless, sudden, unexplainable. While others lost themselves in the storm, something anchored you. You kept rising, not because it was easy, but because the collapse simply wasn't an option. What looked like chaos was actually the sharpening of your edges. While they scattered at the first sign of pressure, you somehow kept moving like gravity didn't apply to you. Their attempts to throw you off track didn't just fail, they revealed a hidden architecture of protection all around you. Something unseen has been guarding your momentum, and what should have ruined you only reminded you what you're really made of. There's been a subtle force threading through your days, unpredictable, sly, hard to pin down, trying to drain your energy from the background. Not through obvious attacks, but through fatigue, through doubt, through fog in your thinking. But instead of spiraling, your system began adapting. A quiet resistance formed where fragility once lived. Every interruption became training. Every disturbance became data. And the more they tried to distract, the clearer your focus became. Without realizing it, you've built a kind of radar. One that filters out illusion, one that senses betrayal before it speaks, one that keeps pointing you forward even when logic says you're lost. Now there's a shift, not in the world, but in how you hold yourself within it. The old games don't move you anymore. What once pulled you into over-explaining, over-giving, overthinking now barely gets a blink. That's not detachment, that's clarity hardened into power. Beneath the surface, you've been forging something unshakable. While they whispered curses behind your back, you were laying foundations they couldn't see. What they tried to dismantle in you has only multiplied. They thought they were interrupting your progress, but they were only testing the strength of something that refuses to break. And now, every attack is just another sign that you've already passed through the fire untouched. They've been misreading the entire script. The version of you they see is crafted, not fake, but calculated. That warm demeanor, that easygoing smile, the way you blend into the background just enough? All part of a silent operation. They interpret it as softness, vulnerability, submission. But when they overstep, they trigger something they weren't prepared for. Beneath the calm is a force that doesn't respond with noise. It responds with precision. The mistake they keep repeating is assuming you're alone, assuming you're unaware, assuming you're weak. And every new ally they send into your orbit gets hit with the same rude awakening. The illusion doesn't last long. What they believed was a target turns out to be the test, and they keep failing it. There's something ancient moving through your blood, not in appearance, but in memory. Not a title passed down, but a spark that knows how to wait in silence until it's called. The attempts to block you have only stirred it to life. They tried to write you off as ordinary, but there's a current running through you that they can't chart, let alone control. The abilities waking up in you were not taught. They were embedded. They don't come from books or ceremonies, but from time itself. Patterns others run from, you read like language. Energies that would crush others barely register anymore. What's rising now isn't learned, it's recalled. They're burning through resources trying to fabricate influence, casting lines in every direction, but they've missed the one thing that can't be bought, alignment. What's holding you up doesn't come from outside you. It's not tied to objects, rituals, or performance. It's rooted in surrender, a kind of inner tuning that sets off a frequency nothing artificial can mimic. When you move from that space, it doesn't matter what they chant, what they plot, or how loud they scream. Their desperation is the clearest confirmation that they've already lost. They just haven't accepted it yet. The hardest blows didn't come from strangers. They were handed to you with familiar voices and familiar faces. Those meant to protect your name were the ones rewriting your story behind closed doors. While you were building trust, they were digging tunnels beneath your foundation. They weren't content with watching you rise. They needed to siphon what was yours, not because they earned it, but because they couldn't create it themselves. But the balance is shifting. What was done in quiet corners is about to be reversed in undeniable light. The sabotage that was meant to stop you has instead become the exact pressure needed to launch something unstoppable. And the return won't just match the loss, it will exceed it in ways they never imagined. Distance was never rejection, it was reconfiguration. The removal of those entangled in your downfall wasn't punishment, it was protection. What looked like isolation was in fact sacred ground being cleared around you. Each person who left, each space that turned cold, each no you heard, they were all signals. Signals that the version of you being formed wouldn't survive in contaminated air. It had to be removed from inherited narratives and placed in a context where its full capacity could emerge. The silence they left behind made room for instructions meant only for your ears. Something has shifted at a core level. It's not just your mindset that's changed, it's your entire energetic structure. You're now operating on a level that forces exposure without words. People who once smiled in your face now stumble over themselves in your presence. Their reactions are louder than any confession. They've tried to chart your path, tried to reverse engineer your moves, tried to recreate your access. But the more they dig, the less they understand. What they're bumping into isn't coincidence, it's divine encryption. Every opposition has refined your essence. What was meant to wear you down has instead recalibrated your internal code. You don't just survive attacks, you metabolize them. What disoriented others has sharpened you. Their familiar patterns no longer work on your terrain. Emotional games fall flat. Financial traps collapse on contact. Health hits dissipate before they land. They're used to people breaking at this stage. But instead, they're watching something rare, a being who converts chaos into clarity and pressure into power in real time. Something strange has been happening behind your closed eyes. Rest is no longer rest, it's revelation. Sleep has shifted into something sacred, something coded. What once felt like fragmented hours of chaos has turned into a flowing stream of messages that reach you in symbols and movements, long before events unfold. The silence of the night has become the stage for unseen dialogues, where you receive warnings and blueprints in the space where others simply dream. What they tried to disorder has reordered itself. What they meant to disturb now delivers clarity. Even the unconscious realms you enter have turned into tools that protect and inform you. The devices around you, screens, signals, circuits, have started to respond strangely in your presence. Random glitches, static bursts, sudden malfunctions. To others, it looks like coincidence. But you've begun to recognize a rhythm. Their mechanisms of observation are short-circuiting not because of flaws in the system, but because you've outgrown their range. The tools meant to trace you now tremble when you pass. Their wires twist with confusion when trying to capture something that doesn't register on their grid. Their network can't process your current. What they built for control collapses under your frequency. There's a new authority inside your instincts now. It doesn't come and go. It lives in you. That soft nudge that once came occasionally is now a continuous stream of internal commands that always seem one step ahead. The reason their plans fall apart before they reach you is because you're no longer reacting, you're already aligned. That inner radar has replaced all other systems. It's why your path is clean even when chaos surrounds it. It's why manipulation fails even when it's expertly disguised. The physical body they once targeted now repels everything meant to weaken it. The heaviness that used to slow your steps disappears in days. The strange fatigue that used to drain your purpose has been replaced with a kind of momentum that seems to self-renew. Your entire vessel has been upgraded, not through treatments, not through formulas, but through alignment. It discards what doesn't belong. It repairs without instruction. It recognizes danger before impact. They aimed their arrows at flesh, but what you carry isn't bound to biology. Their emotional games, once so effective, now seem laughably outdated. The switches they used to flip have been ripped out from the circuitry of your being. There's no access left. No entry points remain. You've become immune to the very tactics they rely on to keep people small. You no longer respond with collapse. You observe with clarity. Their greatest frustration is discovering they can no longer trigger what no longer exists. What felt like abandonment has revealed itself as sacred protection. Every connection severed without closure, every person who vanished without reason, they were tethered to something that would have corrupted your path. The silence they left behind wasn't emptiness. It was intentional space, carved out for something purer to enter. What looked like separation was actually a process of refinement. You've been sealed off, not as punishment, but as preservation. And what's forming inside that space is the version of you they never wanted to face. There's a new kind of energy surrounding your life, not built on performance, not kept alive by obligation. These people coming into your space don't need introductions or explanations. They recognize something sacred the moment they encounter you. They aren't confused by your depth or intimidated by your strength. They match your presence because their own lives are built on authenticity, not illusion. These connections aren't delicate, they're deeply forged. Built on shared vision and spiritual alignment, they carry a different weight. There's no corruption here, no hidden agenda, no control mechanisms. What's forming now can't be tampered with. It's too rooted in truth to be undone. The way you communicate with higher guidance has evolved into something immediate. It's no longer a request sent into the void, it's a direct transmission. Answers come with the speed of thought. The alignment of your intention with divine intelligence is so precise, even your unspoken needs are being answered before you vocalize them. Invisible forces have been dispatched on your behalf, already making arrangements in spaces you haven't yet entered. What was once silent has become symphonic. And the ripple of that divine orchestration is about to echo through the material world in undeniable ways. Every person who tried to curse your progress is about to witness why tampering with a protected soul carries irreversible consequences. Your creative stream is unlike anything you've ever known. Concepts arrive in full bloom. Solutions build themselves before problems even finish forming. Ideas are pouring through your consciousness faster than you can name them. But this isn't random overflow, it's design. This level of inspiration is a form of preparation. You're not just being filled, you're being fashioned for global impact. What's moving through you is calibrated for the exact work your presence is meant to initiate. The patterns that shape the pain of generations before you have hit a wall. And that wall is you. Cycles that once seemed inevitable have collapsed under the weight of your decision to live differently. Where others folded, you stood. Where silence was taught, you spoke. Where collapse was modeled, you created. And because of that, you've fractured timelines that would have repeated themselves endlessly. Your shift has sent out reverberations, the kind that restructure bloodlines. The healing you've cultivated isn't just personal, it's ancestral. What used to confuse your mind now feels like a badly rehearsed play. Their attempts to twist your reality and distort your perception have lost all power. You no longer fall for the bait, no longer second-guess what you know deep down to be true. The illusion has worn thin. Their performances, once able to stir your emotions, now feel recycled and pitiful. They craft rumors, plant distortions, build entire lies to project onto your image, but none of it lands. Your sense of self has become so defined, so unmoved, that their noise barely echoes anymore. The emotional leash that once kept you circling broken attachments has snapped. What they tried to disguise as care was always control, and what you once called love now reveals itself as manipulation in retrospect. You don't yearn for their closeness, don't crave their validation, don't seek their approval. Something higher than your own will step in and broke the cycle for good. Now, the emotional gravity that once pulled you back has been neutralized. You walk forward without dragging old ghosts behind you. Your inner world has become unshakable. What used to send you into spirals now passes through without leaving a trace. Storms that once knocked you off your center now simply pass overhead. You've become someone who can remain still in moments that fracture others. Anxiety has lost its grip, Fear no longer finds purchase, and darkness no longer has a place to nest. You're experiencing a mental equilibrium that feels engineered by forces far beyond human comprehension, a state of clarity that holds even under pressure. They tried to infiltrate your body through subtle and visible means, hoping to cause collapse by weakening the shell. But the opposite occurred. The interruptions only served to expose the strength of what lies beneath. You've become harder to harm because your body no longer absorbs distortion. Whether through fatigue without cause, pain without source, or inconvenience without reason, you've transcended the targeted interference. Your form has become less like a machine and more like a self-repairing system. Adaptive, aware, and self-cleansing. Their energetic tactics, the unseen, the invasive, the designed to be undetectable, have backfired. Instead of draining you, they've become fuel for something evolutionary. What they meant as sabotage has become a secondary power source. Their miscalculations are feeding the very force they fear. Every coded attempt to dismantle your stamina is rerouted, inverted, recycled. You're not just enduring the hits, you're absorbing their charge and converting it into acceleration. Their attacks are financing your growth in ways they'll never understand. The way you rest has become its own revolution. What once felt like disconnection now feels like divine reception. The hours spent in silence have become moments of encrypted guidance. Rest is no longer downtime, it's the space where upgrades are installed, where revelations arrive without invitation. What they tried to corrupt has become a sacred chamber of regeneration. The exhaustion they planted has become sacred stillness. The visions that arrive aren't dreams, they're instructions in disguise. Time has begun treating you differently. While others count the years by how much they've lost, your timeline seems to reverse itself. Stress wears down the world around you, but you continue refining. There's a glow emerging where there should be decay. A vitality where there should be wear. The challenges that eat away at others seem to sculpt you instead. And as their aging accelerates under pressure, you're becoming more luminous, untouched by the timeline they're trapped in. Everything they tried to keep hidden from you is now unraveling in real time. The dormant intelligence you carry, the kind passed down silently, through actions instead of words, is reactivating. This isn't about fairy tales. This is about ancient codes embedded in your line that are finally syncing with your awareness. The flashes of insight, the sudden clarity, the internal language you're starting to understand, none of it is accidental. It's the quiet legacy of those who came before you, resurfacing through your awakening. They've spent a lifetime misjudging your stillness. They saw calm and assumed collapse. They saw silence and assumed surrender. But they never understood what was really being contained. You weren't avoiding confrontation, you were mastering control. And now, that inner calibration has become something they can't categorize. When restraint is released by someone who truly holds power, it doesn't create conflict, it creates shifts. The world adjusts to make room for what you've been holding back. Their desperation has turned into noise. Aligning with anyone who resents your existence, they've thrown together alliances built on borrowed rage. But the pattern has revealed itself. Each person who joins the campaign against you ends up unraveling. It's not coincidence, it's universal law in motion. Their own bitterness has become the architect of their collapse. You've watched the same scenario play out on loop. The confident arrive with fire and leave with ash. Even their cleverest attacks seem to disappear into thin air the moment they try to strike. You weren't built to be taken down. You were designed to expose their fragility. Behind every moment you've spent in surrender, something was forming. A shield that wasn't visible, but real. Each quiet decision to walk in integrity, every private request for guidance, every moment you chose alignment over retaliation, all of it has been constructing a sanctuary around you. You weren't just surviving the battle. You were becoming the structure that ends it. They've been circling your resources like scavengers, assuming they could interfere with what wasn't theirs to touch. They analyzed your patterns like data, hoping to predict your next move. But what they missed is that your supply line doesn't begin in the physical realm. It flows from a source no tactic can interrupt. Every setback they engineered has only multiplied your return. Their interference keeps unlocking upgrades they didn't know existed. Their attempts at blockage have accidentally rerouted you to higher paths. Where others are watching their wealth erode, yours is taking strange, exponential shapes. What should have been a loss becomes unexpected gain. What should have been a closed door reveals a staircase. It's not just recovery, it's advancement by inversion. They're watching, confused, as the very traps they laid become construction zones for your elevation. And no matter how hard they try to destabilize your foundation, it only leads you higher. What once felt like a survival game with money has completely dissolved. The fearful grip around every dollar has released, and in its place, there's flow, intelligent, intentional, unforced. You no longer treat finances as fragile, but as living currents that respond to your inner state. Where you once clung from fear, now you give with clarity. Where lack once clouded your thoughts, now clarity clears space for overflow. You're no longer chasing resources. They arrive, drawn by the signal you've become. There's no longer a question of how, only a knowing that what is aligned will always find its way to you. Every effort to dismantle your progress has backfired in ways they can't explain. The projects they tried to slow have taken flight. The partnerships they tried to split have become ironclad. The business leads they buried have resurfaced, multiplied, and thriving. Each disruption has only revealed new opportunities. The more they interfered, the more momentum built in your favor. The more sabotage they sent, the more platforms appeared under your feet. Their campaign to keep you small has unintentionally made you undeniable. Systems that once rejected you have reversed their tune. Doors that stayed closed are now being pried open just to invite you in. Even the structures they tampered with, your financial history, your records, your credibility, have been rewritten by unseen hands. And as they wonder how your losses turned into expansion, you're being guided into spaces they were never invited to enter. What was removed from you in secret is now returning in forms they can't track, measure, or block. The wealth they manipulated for their own gain has turned against them. That temporary rise they orchestrated is collapsing under its own weight. What they acquired from you has become unmanageable in their hands. Things they bought with dirty intentions keep malfunctioning. The false elevation they forced now feels like a trap. They thought they had secured their future, but all they built was a ticking timer of self-inflicted decay. What they took is becoming their undoing. The flow coming into your life now isn't random. It's prophetic provision. The rerouted inheritance, the unexpected funding, the sudden connections, all of it is part of a bigger operation. You've tapped into a current that doesn't draw from old reserves. It emerges from the blueprint of your purpose. And unlike anything material, it cannot be frozen, reversed, or withheld. It is yours because of who you are, not because of what you've done.